Hello, fellow space engineers. Gopescope here from the Gopescope gaming channel, and I'm happy to welcome you to another episode in our series, Let's Build a Battlefleet. In the last episode, we took a look at the Tethys Class frigate. If you joined us for that episode and downloaded the ship from the Steam Workshop, I'd invite you to take another look if you haven't checked it out recently, because I made a few adjustments to get some more maneuverability and acceleration out of the ship, and I updated its paint scheme as well. So if you look in there, there will be a new blueprint with asterisks around it that say updated. That's the one to check out. Now in this episode, we are going to take a look at the Tethys Class Destroyer. At the end of episode 1, we got a sneak peek of this ship letting some ordnance off the chain at our Tethys Class frigate. And if you're paying very close attention, you may be thinking, hey, that's not quite the same ship. And you would be right. After thinking more about the Tethys as it was, I couldn't help but feel that it looked like something my cat did on the living room floor. So I spent quite a while giving it an overhaul, and I'm pleased with the outcome. I hope you are too. I will provide detailed specifications of the vessel in the description of this video for those of you who are interested in any that I leave out. But enough with this intro already, let's take a look at the ship. Let's start with the mass of this vessel, which is approximately 9 million kilograms. That is roughly 40% more massive than the Enceladus, to give you an idea of the difference in scale. We can move on to our point defense systems now, which consist of a total of 13 Gatling turrets. You can see there are 3 here, mounted on the upper part of the vessel, 2 near the stern. Those have the job of covering the stern section, also port and starboard. You can see they're mirrored on the bottom, so that makes up 4 of those there. We have this dorsal mount Gatling turret near the front of the ship, and we have a starboard Gatling turret that's mirrored with a port Gatling turret amidships here as well. And if we move down to the bottom, we can take a look here and see there is a keel-mounted centered Gatling turret. Now that looks like it's a little nestled in and it can't hit much, but in fact it's pretty well protected, and because these are slanted, it has a very good field of fire for the areas it needs to protect, and the areas that it doesn't cover are covered at the rear by 2 more Gatling turrets. And if we move forward, we can see the prow of the ship has a fairly similar configuration of point defense Gatling turrets rather, at the prow of the vessel. It's similar to the Tethys class frigate. In fact, nearly identical, and it's that way because that seems to be a fairly effective way to protect a primary weapon system. That is going to be a target for attack craft and other ships. In fact, turrets like to target those areas too, where there's moving objects and weapon systems and things. You can see there's a rocket battery here. This is not connected to anything. This just functions as a way of targeting visually with the red dot that it projects out the main weapon system, which is in fact a torpedo launch system. It'd be nice at some point if they have a targeting block that's not actually a rocket block. I don't like to sort of misuse blocks, but that seemed to be the best solution at the time. You can see we have cameras here. We can look through these later. These are a way of targeting the weapon system from inside the ship. They give a better view than you can get elsewhere to do that. And inside here, the torpedo tube, you can see there's a blast door here, or a blast shield. We'll take a look at that functionality of that as well. That's also somewhat similar to the Enceladus. It serves the same function. It's just more of an internal shield, and it folds up and back into the ship instead of out and forward like the Enceladus, but same concept there. If we move on from point defense to engines, fly around to the back, you can see we have a number of engines, large and small, in different places here, port and starboard. These are mirrored, of course. Same kind of a thing up here. This is mirrored essentially to the bottom as well. I went for more of a dispersed pattern here so that if there's incoming fire, it's much less likely that all of the engines are going to be destroyed. Maybe you'll lose a few, maybe you'll lose one, but you won't lose all of your maneuvering capabilities in one direction. And if we swing around to the back, we can see the main engines, the forward thrust. That's quite a number of engines, and that is because it is a fairly massive ship. There's also One other turret we hadn't looked at that we need to here, and this is the stern-mounted turret, which of course is only there to protect the engines. It's tucked kind of away in a position where if you are even this far over, it's not going to be engaging you, but these turrets certainly will and can. But if you're actually back here attacking the engines directly, you're going to get at least one of these turrets. You're going to get its undivided attention. So that's what that's there for. We do have running lights on this ship as well, just like the Enceladus, so you'll see those dotted around. I won't spend too much time on those. They're not that exciting, but they are there. The forward thrust on this vessel is about 13.2 million newtons. That gives us an acceleration that amounts to going from 0 to 20 meters per second in 14 seconds. There are also 50 gyros on board, which with the mass of this ship gives us about 180,000 kilograms per gyro. It's reasonably maneuverable, not quite as maneuverable as the updated Enceladus, and that's sort of deliberate. This is a larger ship. As they get larger, they're going to become less maneuverable. There is less focus on maneuverability as they get larger. It's maybe a better way to put it. Once we get into cruiser-sized ships and up, there will be substantial drop in maneuverability. Those are a lot more about just getting the ship into the vicinity of the fight and getting its big weapons, bringing them to bear against other capital ships and things of that nature. On that subject, the purpose of this vessel, where the Enceladus, which you can actually see, we have one back there with the new paint scheme. The purpose of that ship was mainly escorting and scouting, maybe some interdiction. This vessel is primarily built as a cruiser and capital ship hunter, and that is because its primary weapon system is this gravity launch torpedo system, which we will go inside and take a look at. Start the interior tour here by going into the port side access hatch. We come in here and fly up. Get into the, this is kind of the dorsal corridor. The bridge leads that way. We'll take a look at that in a little bit. Across the way, this is where you'd come in if you came in from the starboard side, basically mirrored from both sides. We have a turret that's protecting this, that has a field of fire that will cover if you come in this way. It'll get you. If you come in that way, it'll get you. And actually can hit people a ways down the hallway towards the bridge. So it does a fairly good job of protecting. And the way it's mounted here allows you to actually walk through past it this way. Now you'll see there is a door here which leads down an access tube. There is also a door here that leads down an access tube, and these are somewhat redundant. You can see that's the other access tube there. We have the medical bay here. If we go down a little bit farther, we can see there's the other access tube. It actually terminates there, and these both lead to the torpedo bay, torpedo control room. And if you go down, this one actually brings you all the way down to the torpedo bay access door. If we come back out and head up back to the torpedo control room, we can whoop, it's a little jetpack fail here. It'll be nice at some point if there are, I don't know how they would implement it, but some kind of elevator system, something where you're not maneuvering through the ship using a jetpack. It's nice when you have gravity and you can walk around and you get to these corridors or shafts, depending on the layout. It gets a little bit tricky sometimes. May just be that I need to get better at it. But we can continue our tour moving aft. This section is a main crew berth. This is a bigger ship, so we have more places for crew to sleep. Like the Enceladus, this is a ship that's a no-frills ship. You have bunks here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bunks here. And if we climb back up and head around this way, we can see that we have an additional 3 here, making a total of 10 bunks. And if we come farther back through the ship, you can see a gravity generator down here. And come through here. I'm kind of using yellow, this sort of yellow, sort of gold color. I use red to indicate medical. I'm using this gold color to sort of indicate command. So this is the captain's quarters. We have another bed here. He's got his chair. There's a locker for him. You notice the bridge has the same color, sort of a scheme that I'm trying to use to give cues to what rooms serve what purpose, to make it a little bit easier to know what's going on. We have green here for engineering, and oh, I'm just realizing I missed a door. So this is blue. In the blueprint, I'll fix this. This will be gold because this is actually the control room that is mounted much deeper into the ship. Now, depending on your preference, you could use this as the primary control room. You see it has its own dedicated turret defense system, so if someone breaks through that door, they are going to get a nasty surprise. And you have a number of these panels. This one controls the hatches. You can open and close all inner hatches, open and close all outer hatches. You could, of course, reprogram that if you want it to serve a different function. These controls toggle the Gatling turrets on the exterior of the ship on and off. These control the interior point defense turrets, or anti-personnel turrets, rather. And this controls the connector activation timer. This ship has a connector just like the Enceladus does, and then here we have the control seat. So this is quite deep within the bowels of the ship, and it is perfectly suited to be a primary control station if that is your preference. Moving back farther into the rear, we have the main engineering room, where we have 2 of our large reactors. We actually have a total of 4 large reactors powering this vessel, which is enough that there is backup power to spare. If reactors are lost, you can actually suffer the loss of a couple of these without having a large impact on the performance of the vessel. And this is an engineering button panel. You can toggle these reactors on and off with that. And again, like any of the other ones, if you'd like it to serve a different function, you can, of course, reprogram it. And here we just have kind of a fun view of some of the gyroscopes inside the ship. So if we move back forward here, we can get to the torpedo control room that we saw earlier and get into some of the specifics on how this system works. So we have a button panel here. The first button opens the blast door, which, like I said, functions similar to the Enceladus, almost identical. We have the same kind of timing system where we have red and green lights that give an indication of whether or not the door is open or closed, and that's going on in the bridge too, which you can't see right now, but we will later. And if you look out ahead there, you see there is a target that we're pointed at. That's actually a heavy armor target. The one that we're pointed at right now happens to be 3 heavy armor blocks thick, and you can barely see it dead ahead between there, but there is a blockade platform. I call it the Icarus blockade platform. It's another part of a system that I'm working on that I'll be doing a video on later. But basically right now that's just a platform that has 2 Gatling turrets. And it is set up with 800-yard range, and it is set to target moving objects. So with this torpedo system, I don't want to be just lobbing torpedoes at a target that has no defense, because clearly you're going to be launching it at a ship that has point defense. It may have rockets too. I could do another video when we do a Let's Battle video where we put these ships through their paces a little more. That shows us exactly how that's going to affect this torpedo. But for now, we have these 2 Gatling turrets, which will simulate a ship trying to shoot it down on the way in. Now, I just mentioned the Let's Battle videos. I talked about that in the description of the last video, but I believe I did not mention it in the video itself. So these videos are sort of spotlights on the ships themselves, showing the capabilities, what they're all about, what the insides of them look like. And in this video, we will be launching some torpedoes at targets and seeing how they work, because that's a big part of how this ship functions. It's actually the main purpose of this ship, is to fire these torpedoes. But in future videos, separate from this series, we'll do some Let's Battle videos where we actually take the ships that we've been building in this fleet and really run them through their paces, put them through some challenges and see how they fare in those. So stay tuned for those as well. So to get back to our torpedo system, now we have these other buttons. This first button is the load button. So you can see we click that. That activates this system here. So we've built the torpedo, and those Gatling turrets are already detecting a moving object. You see them honing in there. We're within 800 yards apparently. So pardon the sound of for Battlestar Galactica they'd call that rain, but if you pardon that sound, we'll be launching this in a moment. That load button, as you can see, the grinder brought this piece down to a point where it's almost ready to break free. So if you're flying around with the ship and you're getting close to ready to engage, you can fly around with this and maneuver without a problem the way it's connected now, and then you can have an on-demand launch with this button that is very little delay, and boom, there we go. And now okay, it looks like those Gatling turrets actually found their mark on one of the warheads. This is the first time. I've tested this a few times, and every time it has made it through and impacted the target. It looks like that time it did get destroyed before it made it to it. So let's try another one. This button's actually a load and fire button, which just combines the functions of both of these so that you hit it once, and it is going to build it and fire it as soon as it can. Boy, these Gatling turrets are more effective than they were when I was testing this. Let's see if this one makes it through. And there it goes. It did not. I wonder what the difference is. Let's try to fire another one. They just seem to be finding their mark in a way that they did not before. So now, one of the things you'll see going on, this rotor is tipping up and down. That's part of the launch mechanism. There may be a better way to do that. But what I found is that to get this timer to activate, which then activates this battery, because when it's built, here we'll build it. When it's actually in its built phase, the battery is set to be recharging from the ship's power, and of course the battery is only able to recharge or dispense power. So when this torpedo is separated from the ship, the artificial mass block. Oh, we better launch this. We're getting some serious incoming here. So we may have to adjust the design of this torpedo a little bit. It's not faring as well as it used to. Well, we can get into that in one of the Let's Battle episodes, but it'd just be a matter of changing the configuration of where the warheads are and where the armor is. And there's actually enough room in this torpedo bay to make this longer. Substantially longer before you'd run into an issue with redesigning the ship itself to accommodate. So there's room for expansion. There's room to make a larger warhead, or larger torpedo rather. But I digress. To get back to the torpedo itself, the battery needs to have a way of changing to provide power to the torpedo, which turns on the artificial mass block, which then allows the gravity drives that are located along the port and starboard side here to propel this torpedo. And so this block that moves down when it fires is activating a sensor on the nose of or near the front of the torpedo that activates this timer, which then switches the settings on this battery. Like I said, I've tested this in survival, and it does work in survival without issue. So this is fully compatible with survival. So now we'll move from this torpedo room up to the bridge that we walked past before, but did not check out yet. We already looked at the medical bay. We can come around here. There we go. Fared a little better in that shaft that time. If we come through here, you see we have another gold door, gold for command, and here we are in the I guess you could call it the flying bridge or the main bridge, depending on what your preference is. But we have another panel here, similar to the one in the other bridge, open and closing hatches. We have a panel here that's kind of left open for programming whatever you'd like into it. I didn't have anything in particular to put in there, but there was room for another panel, so it's always good to have the possibility for future additions to a ship if need be. And back here we got another gold door. This leads to another area for the crew. And in the Enceladus, just the captain had his own room. This seemed like a large enough ship to me to warrant a first officer's quarters. So that's what this is. You can see he has a bed. He's got a first officer's locker, and he's located right by the bridge, so the captain can be lazy in his quarters, and the first officer can handle minor emergencies and things like that. But anyway, getting back to these button panels, here we have the bridge blast shield system. Just like the Enceladus, this has a blast shield. Unlike the Enceladus, this blast shield provides almost full coverage for the destroyer. It had a slightly different design in the way I went about it, and it provided some extra protection. And we can toggle our Gatling turrets on and off from here, as well as our internal anti-personnel turrets. And if we come around to this control panel, we can see timing blocks. This is essentially the same setup, or it is the identical setup rather, to the torpedo control room that we just looked at. So we've got one that opens and closes the blast door. We've got a load timer. We've got a shoot timer, fire timer, and then we have a load and fire timer. Okay, let's actually lob some of these at these targets. The one on the left, the one that we're facing right now, is 3 heavy armor blocks thick. Let's load up a torpedo and fire. Now, there is a bug currently in the game where weapons like these sometimes do not actually strike the target that they're pointed at, like we are doing right now. We'll see if it explodes or if it just disappears. Sometimes they just sort of go through the target and vanish. There we go. We have an impact. That's great. I was hoping for that. So we can go inspect the damage, but I think we can already see we've penetrated the 3 layers of armor. So hopefully this second torpedo also impacts the target and doesn't go through it. I've had mixed luck with that bug. Hopefully that gets fixed. We'll see how it goes. Okay, here we go. Let's see if she hits. Ah, there we go. We have a hit. All right, that's good. Two for 2. That's fantastic. The developers for Space Engineers, I have to say, in these videos, if I talk about things that I would like to see or things that are not working correctly, always keep in mind my opinion of the developers of Space Engineers is that they're without peer. I play quite a few early access alpha games, and I'd struggle to think of anyone who works harder and does a better job at getting consistent new features out for the game that they're developing, and also is very conscientious about fixing bugs. It seems like some developers, I don't want to throw anybody in particular under the rug, but I know there are some that there are some that outright abandon their games. Of course, that happens. But then there are also some who seem to lean a little too heavily, in my opinion, on the excuse of, well, it's early access alpha, so it's going to be buggy. And these developers over at Keen Software House are doing a great job of proving that, well, it's not really a valid excuse, because you can definitely fix bugs and make a game pretty playable in the early access alpha. Now we have in our sights the Enceladus class cruiser, and I was thinking it might be fun to just see, can we get any of these torpedoes through to hit the target? Now bear in mind, this is not the kind of ship that the destroyer, the Tethys Destroyer, is designed to attack. If we had somebody else piloting that Enceladus, it would be very difficult to strike the Enceladus with these torpedoes, even if it made it past their point defenses. Because, you know, even though these torpedoes are moving at full speed on launch, you still would need to be pretty close to actually get to a point where you're going to hit it reliably. Oh, this might get through. There we go. We have an impact. All right, so we had a good strike right in the middle there. But as I was saying, if that was being maneuvered around, if the pilot was paying attention, be pretty likely they could dodge these torpedoes. But it does give them something else that they'd need to focus on, something else that they would need to do, and that's not a bad thing. But I would expect that if these two vessels went up against each other in a fight, almost every time, if the pilots were of a similar skill level, the Enceladus would come out on top. I think that's just because it has more maneuverability, more speed. It has a prow-mounted weapon system that can really do a lot of damage to another ship, and is going to be able to hit that ship far more reliably. Another critical feature is that even though they're not turned on right now, the Enceladus has 2 rocket turrets, which are very powerful. Of course, everybody knows who's played this game that those can dish out some damage. Now, we've come close here. We had an explosion, but there is no apparent damage. So I think when I thought we had a detonation on the top of this ship, we actually just had a detonation very close to it, but not actually on it. So this shows me that we definitely have some improvements that we can make to the torpedo itself, because it is not robust enough to make it to its target. which is obviously an issue. And if the Enceladus is able to repel it with as much efficiency as this is able to, a cruiser or a battle cruiser, battleship, carrier, something bigger that this is actually intended for would certainly be able to shoot it down as well. There may be an issue with the fact that this is just one weapon being fired at the Enceladus. If you were in a large battle and you had other ships lobbing rockets and things like that, it would be taking some of the attention of the Gatling turrets away, and maybe a torpedo would get through. Nevertheless, I think I might go back to the drawing board a little bit on the torpedo and bring you guys a little bit later a torpedo that hopefully will be robust enough to actually make it through and strike a target that's defended by a number of Gatling turrets. All right, now we're looking at a cutaway of the Tethys. We did this in the first episode. I know we walked through the Tethys, but I kind of like doing this sort of thing where you can see all in one shot the inside of a ship to really get a good sense of how it flows and where things are in relation to each other, because when I'm running around inside that ship, it can probably get a little bit wild and maybe a little bit disorienting. I know it can be disorienting for me, and I'm actually moving around in the ship. I imagine it might be disorienting for viewers as well. So if we look at the prow here, we see the torpedo tube. It takes up quite a large space in the ship. It is the primary weapon system, so that makes perfect sense. Here's the blast shield. We can see a couple of the prow-mounted turrets. You can see the side of the bridge blast shield up there as well. And we have the bridge there. We have the first officer's quarters. Here is a gravity generator. It's actually set for reverse, and that's what's providing gravity to walk around up here. When you have a gravity-fed or gravity-driven weapon, you have to be careful about where your gravity generators are and what their ranges are set to for actually walking around, because they can interfere with the gravity drives, which in this case, this ship has them located along the sides up here. So as you can see, they're pretty close, but we have one here, and then we have one here to provide gravity throughout the ship so that you can walk around with ease. Back here we have the medical bay, and we have an access tube that goes down to the torpedo control room. And then we, of course, have our stairs or ramp that leads back into the main crew area, and then a ramp that comes back here into another bridge, depending on your preference. Again, either this is the backup bridge or this is. Both have pretty substantial functionality to them. Here we have the piston extension here. There's the piston that, or not the piston extension, rather, excuse me, the piston connector assembly, so that you can recharge and resupply your vessel. And back here we have main engineering, which in the cutaway here we lost them, but there are a couple of reactors, and there are also 2 reactors that are located in this region and mirrored on the other side. That's where our 4 primary reactors are located. If we fly down, this one has the starboard side cutaway, and down here we can see a port side cutaway. So obviously it's going to be pretty similar look. I won't run through all of it like I did on the other, but you can see what it looks like on the other end. This ship will of course be on the Steam Workshop, and if you'd like to see more of these episodes or episodes like it, please hit those like and subscribe buttons. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for the next installment of Let's Build a Battlefleet.